Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tiny Keyhole Minis. I'm Jolene, and today I thought I would try my hand at creating an old wrought iron bed. I'm trying to make this bed big enough for two people because it's going to go in the attic bedroom for Miss Marco's son and his wife. So this is the footboard, and I'll show you how I made this. Now, I'm so bad at manipulating wire, so I am using aluminum wire, and this is 2 millimeters. I purchased this from Temu, and originally I purchased it for my armatures for my dolls, which is going to work out fantastically. Aluminum wire is super easy to bend and very flexible. So even after I get it to the shape I want it, it's still easy to misshape. So in the end, this bed will be a little wonky and no way perfect in any form or shape. And it turns out to be a little bigger than I'm trying to go for. More like a king versus a queen. But either way, I'm still going to go forward with this and carry on. So right now, I'm just trying to shape the headboard according to the footboard. I would prefer to use a thicker wire for this, but this is the biggest wire that I have. So I'm just going to proceed with this. So I'm already noticing that my footboard is a little off. It's a little bigger on one side than the other. And it's easy to notice things when you're going through your footage that you don't really notice in person. I mean, the camera picks up everything, so you cannot get away with anything. So again, it's okay if this bed is a little off and wonky. It's going to work out in the end. And like I said, in no way, shape, or form perfect. So I'm just trying to make sure that the two pieces will align up with each other when I add the side supports. My headboard's a little taller than the footboard, but I just want to make sure that they're the same length. So when I do add those pieces, they'll line up together. And now I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the design. Now, the design of these beds are endless. You can get as fancy as you can imagine or as simple as you want to be. So this one's going to be pretty simple since it's an old farmhouse, but I do want to create a fancier one later on. I will also be creating a smaller version of this, a more simpler version for the attic. So I'm going to be coming back with that in my next video, which will be for the attic accessories. I have some ideas for some accessories that Miss Margot can store in her attic. So right now, I'm just going to be using some bead spacers to add to the design of this bed. And I'm just playing around to try and figure out which way I want to go with this, because I don't really want to duplicate the footboard, but I do want to use the same beads so that you can tell it belongs together and it's cohesive. So I'm just going to play around with the beads to try and figure out how I want to place them. I have tried several different ways and styles and did come up with something that I liked. So I'm going to be using some Loctite super glue to lock these into place. I'm also going to be using the super glue to put all of my wire pieces into place. Now, I did figure out the soldering and I did get that to work for me, but when soldering aluminum wire, you need special components and products, and you need to do extra steps for the aluminum to solder together. It is possible, but it's a little more challenging than normal wire. So I will not be soldering this bed, but I did practice soldering and finally got it to work for me. So super glue and baking soda is the way I'm going to go with this today, and it's going to work out fine. So right now I'm just trying to figure out how many bars I want to put into place, and I'm going to go a little more and a little different from the footboard. Again, I don't want to duplicate the footboard, but I still want it to be cohesive and look like it's a set. And because there are so many ways that you can go about this, I want to go a little slightly different on the design for the headboard. Um, it's just because, gosh, this is so fun and you can just make so many different designs. And I just want to do like several of these, but unfortunately, I cannot. So um, I'm going to slightly switch it up, but it's still going to look like a complete set and that it belongs together. I'm thinking the more of these beds I make, the better they're going to get. But this one is definitely going to look amateur. Good thing it's going to be for the old farmhouse. So for the feet, I'm just going to add a couple of the bead spacers together and create some unique looking feet. I just want to make sure that they're perfectly straight. So I'm making sure to pay attention to the bead and making sure that it's not tilted or at an angle because I don't want the feet to be bent. So if you're doing something like this, you definitely want to pay attention to that. And I'm just adding a smaller one on top of the larger one, and it just works out, and they kind of look good. So this is what they look like. Now I'm going to go in and remove some of the excess grit from the glue and baking soda. I'm using one of these file sticks, and I purchased a batch of these from Temu, and they are pretty handy. They have an angled tip, so you can get into little places or deeper places, and I really like them. They've got a really rough grit, so they work really well at removing this excess glue, or if you need to file the wire to give it a rougher surface. So I'm just using this to remove some of the bulk of this glue. I don't want it to be too noticeable when I go and paint it. So this is working out pretty well. Okay, I added the side pieces on the side rails, and I also added additional rails to the headboard and the footboard so that I have something to connect all the wire pieces when I add the mattress supports. And now I am painting it with a mixture of black acrylic and Mod Podge. And I'm just going to coat the whole thing. And I may give it more than one coat. I may give it 2 or 3 to help thicken up the wire a little bit. We'll see how that goes, how I feel as I go along. But if you want to thicken up your wire, a few coats of this will work. I'm just trying to make sure that the coat is nice and even, and I'll go around it to catch any drips so that it doesn't dry that way. So now that it is dry, it's time to paint it. And I want to give it that old tarnish brassy look. There's so many ways that you can go about this, but I'm going to try to go that route. So I have some rub and buff, and this is antique gold. And I'm going to use one of these finger daubers, this little finger stamper, and I'm just going to rub on this gold rub and buff and just go around the whole bed with a coat of this. Okay, so this looks very brassy and bright and vivid. So in order to tone that down and tarnish it up, I'm just using some black chalk pastels and I'm going all around and just dulling down this color because I definitely don't want it to be brand new brassy. Okay, so here's what it looks like, and I think it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I like it a lot better. And now I'm going to go in and add the support rails, and I'm using a thinner wire, and I'm just hooking the ends and then hooking them right onto the side rails. Once I get these all on and in place, I'll glue them down so they don't move. And for this, I'm going to do that kind of like that weave crisscross pattern that you would see with the springs, and then they would be like kind of twisted and knotted together in the centers. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to add the horizontal rails going across, and I'm just hooking the sides over the rails. I'm just going to make this simple, but kind of like the same concept. So now I'm going to go in with the vertical ones and I'm just kind of going to weave it over and under and hook them to the rails that are in the front and the back in the same manner. So I'm not going to be knotting them or entwining them. I don't really need them to look exactly like they should because the mattress is going to be laying over it and you won't really see it. I could have very well used the aluminum wire and just created some rails going straight across, but I'm trying to conserve on that. So I'm using a thinner wire that's still super flexible. So this is what it looks like. And now I'm going to move on to the mattress. And for this, I'm going to begin with a piece of foam board. Now, I am going to bulk it up, and knowing that I'm going to bulk it up, it's going to become bigger. I was thinking thicker, not wider, but it does become wider. So this is where I should have cut it about an inch smaller than what it is. And you'll see what I mean later on when you see the mattress. But for now, I'm just going to carry on. And I am using scrap pieces of batting, so I'm just putting them together and covering this up with some tacky glue. This will be the first layer, but I'm going to add 2 more layers. And I also made a grid on the back because I want to tuff the mattress and I don't really follow the grid. So, but it does give me an idea. So I thought I was going to follow it at first and I wanted to, but it didn't work out that way, but it still works out. So I'm just flattening out the batting and making sure that it's attached very well before I proceed to folding it and gluing it over. I'm going to remove some of the bulk as I fold this over. So I'm trimming it down and then I'll remove some of the bulk from the corner pieces as well. Okay, I'm going in with my second layer. I have glued the sides around and I'll show you how I did that with this second layer. I found more of this batting. Again, I'm using 2 pieces to create one whole piece, and that's fine because it's never going to be noticeable. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to glue it down with some tacky glue. Once I get it attached nicely and I know it's stuck down pretty good, I'll flip it over and begin to glue the sides around to the back. To do that, I'm just clipping them down. I'm tacky gluing, clipping, and removing excess bulk. So that's all I'm doing in order to glue down the sides. And I'm just wrapping it like a little package. Once everything is secured, I'm going to add another layer of batting. This is a thinner layer, so I am going to double it up, but I'm not going to wrap it around the sides. I'm just going to place it on the top. So this is what it looks like. It still fits. I still should have cut it down about an inch on the sides, but that's okay. I have this button-up shirt that looks like cotton ticking, and I have been saving this shirt specifically to create a mattress. And the time has come where I can finally put it to use. So I'm super excited about this. So I'm going to do the same thing, just I'm doing the top layer first. I'm not wrapping it completely, but I'm just going to do what I did with the batting and secure it down on the sides, trim off any excess to remove bulk. I'm pulling it nice and tight, and I am also just trimming the corners at an angle so that removes any of the bulk. I'm placing the glue very close to the batting because when I wrap it around, I want the sides to be glued down as well. So once I get this nice and secure, I will begin to tuft the mattress. So I'm going to use a sewing needle and I am using some sort of embroidery thread. I believe it's a wax thread, but I have pulled it apart. I'm using a single strand and then I just kind of doubled it over to make it thicker. And now I'm just trying to keep these even, but it doesn't work out that way. But that's okay. And I'm just going to go down each row about an inch apart and add a little kind of like not exactly a knot, but I'm just kind of looping it through and back again and pulling it nice and tight. Okay, so this is what I have. Not too bad. You can notice it is a little bigger than it should be. Don't judge me on this. This is my first bed. But I'm going to take that section of the shirt where the buttons go, and I'm going to trim that down, and I'm going to use that for the siding of this mattress. So it'll be simple enough to just wrap this around and use it for the side. So I'm trimming a small section of this off, and then I'm going to actually fold it over and glue it to itself. There's buttonholes and I don't want them to be seen. So I'm actually going to fold it over where the buttonholes are and they won't be so noticeable. So now that I got this piece taken care of, before I actually am able to glue it onto the mattress, I need to create a back piece for the mattress. So now I'm going to use a piece of chipboard, literally from a chip box, and create this side of the mattress, the bottom side of the mattress. So I'm just tracing it out, and I'm going to trim it down to be a little smaller. I'm just going to add one layer of the thinner batting just to have some sort of bulk to it. It doesn't need to be too big. And once I wrap that siding around, you won't notice that it's two different pieces. So I'm using some tacky glue, and I'm just going to place the batting on, and then I will take the fabric and wrap it around the same way I did with the first piece. This one's a little bit easier because it's not as big and bulky. And now I'm going to add the glue, a lot of glue, all around this piece and attach it to the top part of the mattress. And I can actually line the stripes up together. Not that that's going to matter because you're not going to see it, but it satisfies my OCD tendencies, so I'm just doing it. So once I get this nice and secure, I can then go ahead and add the siding. I'm using a fabric tack for this because it's a thicker piece and this is a thicker glue and it actually attaches right away. So, yeah, if I can get this out, I'm getting towards the bottom of my bottle. So that's when it starts to get like super thick, but I'm still going to force through this process here. And I'm putting it around nice and tight. I'm not gluing all the way to the top. I'm leaving the top part unglued because I want to take the top part of the strip and kind of roll it down. So I'm going to use the tacky glue for this because the fabric tack is like really thick and I wish I could use the fabric tack for this, but I'm going to use the tacky glue for this and just put a thin line. And then I'm rolling down the very top part of the side just slightly, just enough to attach it to itself. Once that section is secure, I'm going right back in behind it and just kind of pinching it to manipulate the shape to round it off a little more while the glue is still wet. And I'm doing this in small sections. Once that is completed, I'm going back in with the fabric tack to close up any open gaps. There aren't many, but there are a few from where I didn't place the glue towards the top of the side strip. So I'm just closing those areas up. Okay, I flipped the mattress over and I decided to add that tiny strip that I trimmed off of the midsection a little bit ago. And I'm just going to place it around the bottom for that same detail that's running along the top. This will be for the bottom of the side panel. And I'm just adding a little bit of tacky glue and just putting it right into place. Okay, it's time to make the bedding. So I'm going to make a couple pillows, and I have a scrap piece of that thin batting. I didn't measure this. This was just a scrap cut. I also have a scrap piece of another fabric that looks like cotton ticking. It's just a different color. And I'm just going to slightly glue this piece, adding a thin strip for each fold. And I'm lightly folding it a few times. I'm not squishing it down. I'm keeping it fluffy. I don't want to flatten the pillows. And this just happened to be the perfect amount and the perfect length to cut it in half and then just create two pillows that fit the bed. So again, I didn't measure this. This was just a scrap piece that worked out very well. So now I've got the filling for two pillows, and I'm going to do the same thing with this. Basically, I'm just folding it in half and cutting it right down the middle. And I'm going to apply tacky glue to two sides, kind of like an L shape, and leave the one side open. I'm just using a toothpick to spread this out a little bit. This isn't going to be the pillowcase, but the actual pillow itself. So I'm going to fold it over and close it up. And then I'll trim it up so it's a little more even. So once that's set and dry, I'm going to flip it inside out or right side out. And I'm just trying to pull out my corners. I'm going to use these tweezers to carefully do that so I don't pop a seam or poke through. And now I have a nice casing for the pillow. So the batting's going to go inside. And then to close this up, what I'm going to do is just kind of tuck the sides in, kind of fold them in, and then glue them together. So I'm going to do a small section at a time. I'm just going to kind of fold it inward, both sides, and then just add some glue. And then kind of just pinch it closed. And then for the corners, I'm just going to take the toothpick that has a little bit of glue on it and kind of just tuck that inward, so it's not a sharp corner sticking out. And then I'll do the same thing to close the other side of this. Whenever I'm gluing my fabric instead of sewing, I like to put my finger in and just run it along the seam to make sure there's no open pockets or places that need to be re-glued before I flip it back out. So that's a good way to check before you continue on. Okay, so I have my two pillows and they are completed. And now I'm going to make the bedding. Now I've got this green gingham and a white sheet that I'm going to use, and I'm going to make a sheet set. I am not going to dress the bed. I'm going to place the bedding, fold it up on the bed so that it looks like it's ready to be dressed. And these are the corners of a pillowcase. So I've cut both of the corners out. I'm going to use those for pillowcases. And I'm just going to trim it down, and then I can glue the one side closed. So I'm just sizing it to the pillow. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to fold it all up. I could use these for the pillows if I wanted to, but again, I don't want to dress this bed. I just want the bedding to be folded up to look like it's ready to be dressed. I will be dressing Miss Margot's bed though, and I cannot wait because it's going to be super fun to dress her bed. So I'm just trimming it up and bringing it down to size a little bit closer. I'm going to take a strip of this gingham fabric and I'm going to be trimming the pillowcases with this. And I'm also going to trim the flat sheet. So I'm just making a hem on one side. That's all I'm going to need. And I didn't get all of the footage creating the pillowcase, but I'll kind of explain what I did for the missing footage that I didn't show. So once I get this seam completed, again, I'm just doing one side. Okay, this measures about 1 inch wide. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the seam facing downward. So it's not going to be inside out like the pillowcase is. And I'm placing the seam side on the opening end. I'm not gluing the seam side to the sheet. And I'm going to add a little bit of glue, about 1/4 inch, all the way around the opening. And then I'm going to glue the trimming right around the opening. So then when I turn it the right side out, you'll see the seam, but I'm going to fold the trimming back so you won't see the seam in the end. Now, this is how I would probably make the pillowcase if I'm going to be using it. I'm not using it, so I don't know why I went through this trouble, but I'm just showing you what I did. And then I folded it up and put some weight on it to flatten it out. For the fitted sheet, it's going to be a little bit thicker, and I've just folded it up and glued it closed. I am using my clover iron to flatten it out some because it is quite thick. You know, the fitted sheets are always thicker when you're folding them up. So I'm just adding a little bit of glue and giving it a few folds, and then I'll close it shut. And again, I'll add some weight to these just to flatten them down a little more while the glue is drying. Okay, for the flat sheet, it's going to be a smaller piece of fabric, and I'm going to fold it 2 times. I'm going to glue the first fold closed, and then the second fold will go like that, but I'm going to leave that open for now. I'm going to take another strip of the gingham. I'm doing the same thing that I did with the pillowcase, and I'm cutting about 1 inch off and just hemming one side. Okay, now I'm going to take the side that is hemmed. I'm putting that on the bottom, and I'm actually going to face that to the sheet. So I'm actually going to glue that side to the sheet. So it's going to be the right way. I'm trimming down the sides, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue right along the seam that I created. And then I'll lay the sheet right in the middle, fold over the ends. I'm going to just trim my corners a little and taper them. And then I'm going to fold this top part down over the sheet. This will be the inside of the sheet. So the clean edge will be on the outside, and I'll be gluing this fold down. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the trimming, fold it over, and then I can go ahead and glue this fold in place. And I made sure to not bring this fold all the way to the end. So there's a little bit of space where you'll be able to see that trimming. So now I'm just going to add a little bit of glue and give it a couple folds. And that's going to be my flat sheet. I'm also going to put some weight on this as well while the glue dries. Okay, last is the blanket. And I'm just taking a long rectangle piece of this. I'm using my fabric tack because it's a thicker fabric. This is kind of like a thermal fabric. It came from a button-up shirt that was kind of like a thermal material. I just felt like this looked like a blanket. So I created a throw blanket that is sitting in the club chair down in the living room. And now I'm going to create one for the bed. I'm going to kind of do the same thing I did with the filling for the pillow. I'm going to use just a little bit of glue and lightly fold it. So I'm not flattening it out. I still want to kind of keep it fluffy. And there it is. So there is the bedding and it's ready to be laid out. Okay, so now it's time to age the mattress. And technically, I should have cut it down to about this size. But next time, I will definitely take that into consideration. And for this one, I'm just going to carry on. So I'm going to use some yellow chalk pastels to dull down the color. I don't really want to make it look dirty and like you don't want to sleep in it, but I do want to make it look older and maybe give it some water stains. So I'm using the yellow to kind of tarnish up the color. And now I'm going to use some watered down brown acrylic. And if it's too dark, I'm just going to go back in with more water to spread that out. I'm just trying to go for some water stains, maybe from the leak in the ceiling. But this mattress is still usable. So I'm just going to put it in random areas. And I mean, I don't want them to look at it and be like, ew, I don't want to sleep on that. But I mean, I kind of want it to look old, like everything else in the house. So I added some coloring around the sides. Now it's still wet, so it's going to dry a lot later. And now I'm just going to lay out the bedding so you can see what it looks like. And then I'll let it dry before putting it in the room. Well, I still have a lot of work to do in the room. So I'm going to put the pillowcases on the pillow and I'm going to set the bedding right here like Miss Margot just placed it on the corner there. And this is it. So not too bad, right? What do you think? I really like how this came out. But again, next time I make another bed, I will definitely take the size of the mattress into consideration and cut that down a little smaller. I will remember that it's going to grow with the layers. I thought it would be more interesting if this bed was undressed and just had the linens laid out to be made. And I really do like that idea. So that is all I have for you today, tiny friends. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope you've enjoyed this video today, and if you have, please don't forget to hit that like button and give it a thumbs up. As always, I'd like to thank everybody for subscribing and welcome to all my new subscribers. Thank you so much for all your support. If you're new here today and would like to see more of my miniature creations, please hit that subscribe button and don't forget to click that top bell notification button to be notified every time I upload a new project so you don't miss out. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and until next time, tiny friends, I hope you all have a lovely day, and I will see you all on the mini side. Bye-bye.